Live from the Xfinity Studios at WVON. You're listening to Stats and Stilettos.
Those highlights and or lowlights, if you're depending on where you're looking at this from, are courtesy of Fox Sports today. A very eventful day in the world of football here in Chicago and all over the country. Stats and Stilettos. We're back again. What's going on? I'm Farouk Basir.
I'm Maya Kai.
And tonight, we'll pretty much be wall-to-wall football. We're going to do that for pretty much the first 90 minutes of the show. Coming up at 9:20, we'll have A.J. Harris from BlueDudeSports.com. He's a blogger. He does a lot of other things as well. He'll be talking Bears with us, giving us a recap of the season, what to look forward to for the upcoming very eventful, potentially off-season for our Chicago Bears. At 10:04, we'll be talking with Russell Baxter from NFL.com, Bax Pro Football Guru. He'll give us more of an overview of the national scheme of things in terms of NFL and things like that, playoff previews, things of that nature, Maya. So we'll be doing that at 10:04. And later in the show, about 10:20, I asked everybody before the show, Demons, who will also be doing Around the League at 10:30 along with Maya, like your three biggest, in your opinion, sports stories of this past year. You know, everybody's doing the year and everything, no matter where you go on TV, social media, whatever, the big year and things. So we'll do our quick little year-end big three sports stories. And we'll see if we can all meet at the same place because nobody knows. These are all secret, secretly sealed envelopes.
There's going to be at least two things we're probably going to all meet in the middle at because they were really big events within the world of sports. Mm-hmm. I think there's going to be two things we're all going to agree on. I have this feeling. All
right, so stay tuned for that. If you out there have some stories or anything you'd like to talk about with us here on the show tonight, the number is 773-591-1690. That's 773-591-1690. You can listen online at WVON.com. iHeartRadio as well. We're there. Click on that iHeartRadio icon on the WVON site as well to get that crystal clear Stats and Stilettos. You can also follow the show on Twitter at
Stats Stilettos.
And you can like our Facebook page as well. We're on Instagram too at Stats Stilettos. So Bears 10-6. Usually 10 wins will get you in, but I don't know where I'm at personally with this. I felt like I told someone on Twitter today that I think she said something like, why are people rooting for the Packers or why do they want Lovey to get fired? Is it bear down or not? I'm like, I want both. I want the Bears to win the Super Bowl and for Lovey to be gone. Is that too much to ask?
But those two things cannot happen simultaneously. We know this. It can't be that the Bears, if they make it to the playoffs, I don't feel there was a guarantee that there was any job security. But obviously, Lovey being able to get to the Super Bowl probably would buy him more time.
Probably. If he won the Super Bowl, he might get to stay.
Well, no, I think at that point they'd have to keep him on board at that point. Uh-huh. But I don't. It was interesting because I have a fellow who follows me on Twitter, Jermaine J. I'll just say that, who's been following me for a while, and he's an avid Lovey supporter. And I said, you know what? We've been having this Lovey Smith conversation for 2.5 years. Call into the show and let's really talk about it. Stop talking to me about over Twitter. Call in and we'll chat about it because he feels like his question was, how can you be fired if your season-ending record is 10-6? And I was like, well, didn't last week we put together a checklist of things that would get Lovey fired? And the bottom line is, whether he made the playoffs or not, the Bears should have never been in a scenario where the Packers needed to win and they needed to win to get into the playoffs because the first 10 weeks of the season they were playing decent football. Mm-hmm. But what was the one thing I said last week that became really apparent again last week against the Cardinals is that if the Bears defense does not create opportunity, and it almost feels like it has to be more than just create turnovers to give the offense the ball because the offense seems like they can't quite always score when they're given that extra opportunity. Mm-hmm. Last week, the defense scored twice, 14 points. They won against the Cardinals. Going into this game against Detroit, no matter how bad Detroit was, you knew there was still a possibility they would still play decent football. And it gets into that if the defense had not been as aggressive as they were, the Bears may have lost. This game should have never been as close as it was. I don't care what anybody says.
But to me, it's not even about today's game. They won the game. They did what they had to do. They went 10-6. They won 10 games, but you got to dig. This is a stats part of our title right here. You got to dig inside of those numbers. The 10-6, the route in which they took to get to that 10-6 is what should cost Lovey his job. Not just that. There are other things. One playoff appearance in the last 5 years.
That's what cost him his job.
That should cost him his job.
Exactly.
But you're 7-1. You built up enough equity to help you limp to the finish line, but both of their legs wound up being broken instead of just one. they built up enough wins, I think, big enough of a cushion. Just go 4-4. The Seattle game killed them.
Look.
The Minnesota game killed them.
Daryl, so fresh, so clean Johnston. He is always so fly on air. He dresses to the nines. Seriously. He flat out said it, and I agree, that even if the Bears were to make it into the playoffs, they would probably be one and done. He's like, there's no way your defense can have this much of impact on your offense, and you're really going to be successful in the stretch. And I agree with that.
The whole Fox crew was saying that, though. If you looked at their post game in between the Bears game and when the Packers game came on, there was no love out there for your Chicago Bears. But there shouldn't
be, because this is a team, and I would put this question out there because I don't think I've posed this question. I asked D, I asked you, and I don't think any of us have an answer for whatever reason, because it doesn't make any sense to people. That how is it that you look at a team that has good offensive talent? I mean, you've got Brandon Marshall. Alshon Jeffries, for what we're worth, I think had a better game this week than he did the week before. And come next year, I just think he's going to be amazing. So you have wide receivers. Matt Forte put up some good numbers today. He ran the ball well. You know, the tight ends, they tried to get them integrated, but it wasn't, Mike Spaeth did a little bit here and there. But either way, Earl Bennett had a big game. It's like they had forgotten about Earl Bennett for a minute because I know he had some injuries and he was out of the picture. But when you look at all the talent that is available to Mike Tice as well as Jay Cutler to game plan for, why the Bears continue to struggle on offense makes no sense to me. Now, the easy answer people keep coming up with is, it must be the offensive line. I don't buy that anymore, because when you look at what the O-line did, they were decent in the last several games. I mean, look at it this way. The offensive line has dealt with injuries, and I was just saying to Dee that Jonathan Scott has been the biggest surprise that they would have never known anything about had it not been for the injury of Lance Lewis and having to shuffle people around. So you cannot look at this team and say it's all the O-line's fault, because for what it's worth, they've given Jay Cutler the time to get the ball out there. So I'm going to say, stop telling me it's all about the O-line, because newsflash, people, you're going to have the same issue come next year, because the O-line doesn't get better in free agency because there's nobody out there. You draft and you develop. So it is what it is. It's going to have to get better.
Let's take Benjamin real quick. Talking Bears, 773-591-1690. What's going on, Benjamin?
Hey, good evening to Stats and Stilettos, and I hope you guys had a nice day, and definitely I want y'all to have a nice new year in 2013.
Thank you, Benjamin.
Okay, like I said, last week was my first time calling you, but because usually I'm up at 5 o'clock, which I still am. But I have 3 comments. My first comment when it comes to the Bears is this. I never was impressed really with the Bears this year, and the reason why is because I look at that when they played the good teams, the San Franciscos, the Green Bays, they lost. And when they played Jacksonville, they blew them out, but they was a terrible team. Yeah, they beat Detroit twice, but they barely beat Detroit. They beat Detroit 13-7 a couple weeks ago. Then today they won by 2 points. So that's just me. And the reason why I do feel that the Bears probably end up keeping Lovie Smith, because I don't see them paying him $5 million next year. They fire him, then they got to bring another coach in to pay him a lot of money.
I agree.
That's the only reason I feel that they're going to keep Lovie Smith. That's just my Bears comment. And like I said, my rookie of the year is still Russell Wilson, the guy out there in Seattle. I just really like the way that young man really plays. 5'11", 200 pounds. Who's supposed to come in and be a third-string quarterback. Seattle Seahawks got him because he was supposed to be the third string. They got Matt Flynn. Remember, he was the backup to Aaron Rodgers. Paid Matt Flynn $35 million. Russ Wilson came in from training camp. Pete Carroll got so impressed by him, said, "You my starter, Matt Flynn. You on the bench."
He earned the job. Yes, he did. Absolutely, and nothing wrong with that. In fact, at this point, I'm not a big Pete Carroll person, but he almost seems like a genius. Once again, another year, the Seahawks with a much better record this year than last year get into the playoffs, and I think they're more poised. They're going to maybe be like Farouk, you said it. The Seahawks might be that upset team in the playoffs, which is a little scary to think that, but it's true. They may have that ability to be an upset team for a lot of other, they played well against the 49ers. They played well against the Bears, which I guess at this point to me doesn't take much. And I do agree with Benjamin said that the Bears had wins against teams, if you go look, that were barely 500 teams in the first place. They didn't beat the good teams.
Welcome back to Stats and Stilettos. Got a comment? Call the show 773-591-1690 or leave a comment on our Twitter page @StatsStilettos.
What's up?
All right, and it's time for Around the League right here on WVON with Stats and Stilettos. I am your moderator, Damon Spruiel. You can follow me on Twitter at Demons1. That's DEMONZE1. Yeah, very, very tough game. I think I sent out a tweet today. It's like, you know what? The first time I've ever rooted for the Cheeseheads and they lose. I would never, ever, ever do that again.
But see, you shouldn't have done it in the first place because the bottom line is if the Bears were supposed to be in the playoffs, they would have done it the right way.
I agree.
I have no issues with the Vikings winning that game because they played from the very first snap to win, bottom line, with what I feel was less talent outside of AD, who was all day today.
Mm-hmm. Hey, sometimes you guys gotta take sloppy seconds. It happens sometimes. It just happens. Guys out there know what I mean. Also, too, you can watch this show on YouTube. Just simply go to search for Stats and Stilettos on YouTube, and you can see Maya Farouk and myself do the show. All right? So let's go ahead and hop into the game that a lot of Bears fans are heartbroken about right now. Minnesota Vikings, 37. Green Bay Packers, 34. Christian Ponder, 16 for 28. 234 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had Adrian Peterson, 199 yards, 1 touchdown. Aaron Rodgers, 28 for 40, 365 yards, 4 touchdowns. And he had Greg Jennings, 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. I was hoping the Bears, Farouk, wouldn't lose by a field goal in either game, and it happened, and they lost, and the Bears are out. And Minnesota is in, 6th seed.
And there'll be a rematch come next week.
Next week,
in the wild card.
Yep.
So Green Bay had something to play for. I'm sure they don't want to have to face Peterson again. But stuff that was happening in this game just kind of let me know that Green Bay wasn't going to win. Like the whole baby immaculate reception that was in the second quarter.
And that was not a reception. Yeah, that was
Right.
basically immaculate.
Let me just say this.
He didn't get that.
Right.
He didn't
And
catch
to
it.
me, the Vikings, first of all, I was a little annoyed that Christian Ponder, I don't think his focus is where it needs to be, and they need to start a QB search. For the fact that he's getting married during the football season, whatever her name is, Amanda Steele from ESPN, isn't going anywhere. To me, your mind wasn't where it needs to be because it isn't like you are the most well-rounded QB in the league. I don't feel his focus is where it needs to be.
Strike while the iron's hot. He's starting right now.
Oh, shit, trust me. She's not going anywhere. He's an NFL quarterback.
Right.
He's not going anywhere. So I was like, why are you getting married during the football season and your team is trying to go for a playoff push? To me, his focus is not where it needs to be. And there are times I looked at him on the sideline, I'm like, you know what? He doesn't have that eye of the tiger look for me that he needs to have.
But with that being said, he played a
got the
great
job done.
game
He
today.
played
But you know
a great
why?
game today.
Best
Because
game I've seen him play.
AD was just I wanted Adrian Peterson
But
to get
some of the
record.
passes that he made
Right.
Look good.
was
He
were
made
hit.
the throws.
He made
They
the
did.
throws.
They look good.
Right.
Matter of fact, one thing he did in this game and the few games I've watched Minnesota play is he actually spread the ball really well. I mean, matter of fact, because here goes that old theory that if you establish the run, it will open up other options in regards to the offense. And that's exactly, to me, what really happened with the
definitely.
Vikings. They were like double and triple teaming, Adrian Peterson to try to keep him contained, which left open other receivers and the tight ends.
Yep.
So the Bears, hey, newsflash. If you actually Forte had a good game. I'm just saying,
had 100
Adrian
yards
Peterson is just a phenomenal. He's a phenomenal running back.
He is a rare species, if you want to say NFL right now, because running backs really come a dime a dozen. He's the one guy you can really say like he is their offense. How many teams can you say that in the NFL really right now?
Once he got past having Butterfingers, because his first
Yep,
year or two,
yeah.
he was Butterfingers.
Yeah.
He was fumbled a lot, but he's got that out of his system. What I love about Adrian Peterson is he reminds me so much of Barry Sanders. He has that low center of gravity. He can bust through the A gap and get that middle of the field yardage, but he can also get into the open flat and hurt you. He's that well-rounded back. Everybody doesn't have that. Matt Forte doesn't have it. And I always say Farouk made me have my come to Jesus moment with Matt Forte several months ago. Not that I was in love with Matt Forte, but he's not a top 10 back. I'm sorry. Now I'll be less liked by Bear fans at this point.
Can Adrian Peterson carry this team to the Super Bowl?
No.
But I mean, everyone keeps saying that. But
what did he answered your question on Twitter. You asked last week on the show, what was the last running back that actually took a team to the Super Bowl, and we couldn't come up with
Marshall Faulk.
And he came up with Marshall Faulk later on
But
Twitter.
they had so much more than him
Kurt
around
Warner.
them.
No, but
Isaac, Bruce,
Torrey.
Agreed.
I
Agreed, but he was Marshall
Yeah,
Faulk.
yeah, I agree.
But you're right.
I'm not arguing that at all.
But here's the question: isn't Adrian Peterson better than Marshall Faulk?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Come on.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Marshall Faulk was so well-rounded. It wasn't even it's not even. Adrian Peterson's a better runner. I think Marshall Faulk was a better football player in the sense of he can catch, he can block, he can run, he can do it all. It's Marshall Faulk.
Perfect
he can do
answer.
it all.
Perfect answer. But as a running back, though, what
Oh, yeah.
What
yeah.
Peterson
Tit for
is
tat.
doing right now is just crazy.
You're right. His adaptation to the current league, because the league has changed a bit since Marshall Faulk played. Adrian Peterson is that evolution of what you want your running back to be. He is. Hey, I'm not mad.
If you're an old school football fan, there has to be a part of you
That's what I was going to
that
say.
loves.
He's a throwback.
But
is.
this
Adrian
team in general, though, their quarterback is just out there.
Dude, he
Don't
runs
don't
like
lose
Barry
the game.
Sanders.
Don't lose the game is what Ponder is to do. Their defense, while they got exposed today, but it was the Packers. They play good enough to keep them around, and they have a great running back.
And
Old
their
school football
defense-
heads should love the Vikings.
their
This
defense-
is 1980s football.
Yeah.
Their defense, that's again, the Vikings defense, here's what's interesting, didn't really create any opportunities via turnovers or pick sixes, but they allowed their offense to stay in the game. And that's really what you want your defense to do. And then your offense has to step in and be able to put points on the board. Heck, they put 34 points on the board. I mean, Minnesota showed up to play from the first snap of the game, bottom line.
They did. Definitely. All right, next game. Let's go to who I think is the hottest team in the NFL right now.
Who?
Seattle. Seattle 20, yes. St. Louis 13. Russell Wilson 15 for 19, 250 yards, 1 touchdown in passing, and 1 touchdown rushing. He had Marshawn Lynch run for 100 yards. Sam Bradford 25 for 42, 252 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And he had Austin Peetz 24 yards and 1 touchdown. The reason why I say that the Seahawks are the hottest team is just they are the hottest team right now.
Well, you know,
they are playing unbelievable right
I know
now,
how I feel
and
about
you do not want to play a team in the NFL. Some like with hockey, when you get a hot goalie, they're hot right now, Farouk, and they're flying high. And Russell Wilson, he's doing his thing.
Yeah. They kind of got slowed down today offensive wise because they've been putting up over the 40s in the last 3 games. They had 250s and a 40.
250s in a row.
But today, St. Louis, give them credit, they hung in there because St. Louis had all their people out
And
there.
you always say St. Louis is not as bad as people think.
Yeah,
they are.
St. Louis is
But
not
here's my
that
question,
bad.
though. After the game, after this season with St. Louis, I'm now questioning, where are they really at in regards to development of a team? I mean, we know that this is Sam Bradford coming back from injury, and they had new coach and Jeff Fisher, and obviously the smack on the hand from Williams. So the defense didn't get to be the defense they assumed it was going to be. But I look at them, I'm like, I'm not quite sure what to think of them anymore at this point.
They need some wide receivers. They need a running back that can stay healthy. They have
Exactly.
Steven Jackson, but
He's
they need a
telling
running back
his
that can
career.
stay healthy. Right? If they can get him, they can get Bradford one primetime receiver and a pretty decent one. Kind of, we've had that discussion in this town before. So I think
And I will say this, for what it's worth with the Seahawks, I'm not a big Pete Carroll fan, but I have to give him respect for how he manages to get this team in the playoffs. See, this is about coaching ability. He's managed to get the Seahawks in the playoffs when you don't expect them to be there.
He coached them up.
And here's one's better. He also obviously has the ability to assess talent in a way that you didn't anticipate. Because remember, Matt Flynn coming to the Seahawks, the money they paid him, it was the assumption he was going to be the starter, and he has flat out said, Russell Wilson won the job. Based on what we needed to do on offense, I knew that he could execute. So I have to step back and say, even though Pete Carroll is not my favorite person for whatever bizarre reason, he doesn't resonate with me. But he's managed to keep the Seahawk team competitive.
And when this season started, I thought he would get canned for this. I called for Pete Carroll's job for this, so I take all of that back.
Right.
It never
See,
happened.
that's when you. And that's what I'm saying.
Already
That's my thing is, how can you can somebody who, to me, Seattle doesn't have a fraction of the talent that the Bears have.
It's coaching.
But the coaching, this is where that
coaching.
he has hit all my coaching criteria from drafting, developing, and the coaching up portion, which is so you can't put a price tag on that. And here Seattle is again. Like, remember last year they got in, everyone's like, how did they get in with a record like that? But this year they've lived up to the expectation, which nobody thought was going to be there.
He's among Coach of the Year candidates. Pete
He might
Carroll.
be. You're right about that. I agree.
He's at the very top of the list. If he's not one, he's two.
The assistant coach who coached Indianapolis, I can't think of his name right now. I
just
think
drew a
he
blank
should.
as soon as you said that.
I think he should be in consideration too for coach of the year.
Because
Well, he took a team. He was not supposed to be the coach, and he coached up Andrew Luck. He got that team ready to go, and the Colts right now. Matter of fact, it's good segue. It's going to talk about the
it
Colts.
is. Here it
segue
is.
over to
Talk about the
Colts.
Colts. Indianapolis 28, Houston 16. Andrew Luck 14 for 28, 191 yards, 2 touchdowns. T.Y. Hilton 111 yards, 1 touchdown. He had Matt Schaub go for 24 for 36, 275 yards, 2 interceptions, and Arian Foster ran for 96 yards and 1 touchdown. This is a team that came off winning how many games last season? 1 or 2? 2?
You know,
whole
and
games.
And you lose your coach. You think like, oh my God, I hope the guy actually does not pass because he has leukemia.
Right.
And he comes in. I can't think of his name. I got to find his name. And he comes in and coaches them up, and they're in the playoffs. The playoffs sound like.
Well, and that's the
Immoral.
thing. See,
Immoral.
that's another reason for me that I look at the current coach in Chicago and I say, people, you got to accept. There's some things that are just obvious that when you have that situation, remember the Colts pretty much disbanded themselves. Yeah. You know, Jim Irsay was like to the Colts fans, don't expect to really have a good team for the next, 3 to 5 years. Because, Peyton Manning is gone. Though they had luck, there was no idea how good he would be. Remember, they let Jeff Saturday go, their established center. Dallas Clark was let go. I mean, they pretty much let a majority of this team go. And yet, here they are in contention. And you're right. Then they lose Chuck Pagano to having to go in hospital for leukemia. A lot of barriers. But this is like the same conversation about who's the MVP this year. There's so many storylines with different people. You just don't. It could go any way at this point. But you're right. He did do something with a very relatively new team. He did.
People thought that team was going to be anything.
I did too.
What do we think of the Texans? Are the Texans kind of like
issues?
They're having a hiccup.
It's a
right
problem.
Now. They're having the 49. They have 49er-itis.
Houston, we have a problem. There you go. It's a problem going on down there.
I think all of that stems from the running. I got into an argument with Roland freaking Martin on Twitter today.
Are you serious?
Yeah, because he was saying that they should bench Matt Schaub. I'm like, dude, without Matt Schaub last year, they lost their second playoff game. They would have got to the Super Bowl if he'd have been there. So I don't think Schaub is their problem. Arian Foster hasn't been getting the yards that he had been getting. He's slowed down a lot. So I think their problems are way bigger than Matt Schaub, was what I had to tell my man Roland.
It stands to reason.
Former VON employee.
When you peak, can say a lot about. Look at teams that peaked early this season: the Bears, the 49ers, the Texans. A lot of those teams peaked really early and had good, up until going into maybe the 10th game of the season, they peaked, and a lot of those teams are now struggling in the second half of the season. To me, when people talk injuries or whatever, I don't buy that because every team has to deal with that. It's about, I think, just kind of, you're right, Arian Foster, who was definitely a large part of their offense, because I don't think they've gotten from Andre Johnson what they usually would get because of injury and things like that. Mm-hmm. He just hasn't produced like he was in the first half of the season.
Yeah, Bruce Arians, that's his name.
Bruce
Arians.
For the Colts. So, for what it's worth, whereas the Texans and the 49ers look like they were going to have a good stretch going into the playoffs, it may not be as simple.
Oh, wow. Let's go ahead and hop into this one. Washington right now, 21, Dallas 10. This game right here is for the NFC East crown, and whoever wins goes into the playoffs.
Winner go home.
Winner go home right here. This is the first NFL playoff game behind us.
Pretty much.
So Dallas is
Dallas is being Dallas right
now.
There
you go.
And I was talking to some people on Twitter. They're Dallas fans. I'm like, hey, when this game's over, go ahead and call into the show if you need to vent, because not that I want to rain on your parade, but I did not pick Dallas to win this game. I really don't.
I saw no scenario at all where they would be able to go there and win this game.
Man, that was a serious tackle.
With everything on the line for the Redskins. Yeah. And to me, I think they're the hottest team in the league. I know you're saying Seattle, but I feel like the Redskins are. They haven't lost since the whole.
I feel like is
the whole proclamation of the season being over by Mike Shanahan.
I know. Hey, listen.
Stop it.
Let me go and give you the rundown so I can give you the score so you can be happy over there, Cougar. New York Giants 42, Philadelphia 7. You got Tampa Bay 22, Atlanta 17. Denver 38, Kansas City 3.
Tap.
There you go.
San
Francisco.
Kansas City today.
I don't care.
This wasn't even their real team. They sent crash test dummies.
Here's my thing.
That wasn't even a real
team.
Quinn.
But the teams that you're supposed to bend over, they bent over.
Yeah.
Guys, let me just say that. Sorry, fellas.
Quinn should probably be somewhere modeling that now. You're done. San Francisco 27, Arizona 13. He had Cincinnati 23, Baltimore 17, Buffalo 28.
Cincinnati, not to cut you off, they won that division. They came back and won that division. Yeah. Baltimore is another team just kind of backing in, but backwards into the playoffs.
But I think it's about to come to an end.
Marvin Lewis, he always get those chances.
They won that division. I can't believe that.
Yeah, Buffalo, Cincinnati Bengals. Wow. Buffalo 28, New York Jets 9, Carolina 44, New Orleans 38, Pittsburgh 24, Cleveland 10, Tennessee 38, Jacksonville 20, San Diego 24, Oakland 21, and New England 28, Miami 0. And that's around the league.
We've talked NFL. We said that we won at least as the year of 2012 did not end as the Mayans predicted.
We're still here.
Well, people, FYI, they didn't predict that. They just ran out of ink and didn't write no more calendars. They never said the world was ending. People just got a little preemptive about that, but whatever. So here we are, ending 2012. A lot of things happened. So let's kind of quickly go around and what was we said 3 things that you thought were highlights of this year in sports. What was your number one?
My number one was LeBron James. The LeBron James led Miami Heat winning the NBA Finals.
Really?
Yes. Because you got to think of
Like,
all the
you think
crap.
that was the biggest sport?
Yes. Of all the biggest, the crap that he went through to get to that point, the stuff he was having to deal with, all the criticism, everything going into the playoffs, into the finals, into that series.
I did have a basketball thing kind of. It was kind of that, but that wasn't my number one big thing of the year.
Plus, he won Sportsman of the Year, so somebody thought he did something.
And a gold medal, right?
Okay.
Yeah, he won the gold medal, but I think LeBron, that was the number one thing to me.
Okay.
My number one had to be Sandusky.
Yeah, my thing was Penn State.
It had to be Sandusky.
I put that in, I didn't put that in sports.
But it was sports.
It was
It's
sports,
huge
though.
in sports.
Yeah.
But
a team, Penn State is like no more because of this guy.
We're talking about an institution that literally just from top to bottom failed to be ethical because football was more important than the safety of children. But that for me was at least in my 3. You can number them differently. Was that at least on your 3?
I did mine more of stuff on the field.
Okay.
That's
All
the
right.
route. That's the route I went.
All right, that's fine.
Okay.
So then what was your 2 then?
Well, I kind of went local with another one. It wasn't 2, it was 3, but it was the Derrick Rose injury.
Okay, that was actually my
big.
3. It was my third one, that Derrick Rose, his injury, how it changed the landscape of the Chicago Bulls, as well as the Eastern Conference, and it opened up the door for LeBron. Not to say that the Bulls were going to win it, but that was on my list too.
Yeah, they went from a title contender to what we're watching right now.
Right.
Okay, so we agree that was
All 3 of us had that, so
all
I
3?
figured we would all.
No,
have
I didn't have that.
Oh, you
I
didn't?
didn't. No. My number 2 was actually your number 1. Was LeBron James winning the
I
championship.
didn't
That
have
was my number 2.
I kind of put that like Derrick Rose, LeBron, kind of in the same balance in a way.
NBA news.
NBA news.
All right.
And then my originally my second was the whole Lance Armstrong being stripped of his titles. I mean, being the most decorated cyclist of all time, and just for all of a sudden it's gone. That was a big story because that's been ongoing for a long time.
So you chose to go, it sounds like, more with the newsy type of stories and
Well, no,
actual on the field,
that's a big
on
deal.
the court stuff.
It's on the road.
Well, but you know what I mean, like stuff that was going.
To me, that was one of the biggest headlines, that he is stripped of all of his Tour de France wins. So, I mean, I think that's a big story. The fact that he chose to say, I'm no longer doing this, opened the door for them to take everything away from him.
Wait a minute, Farouk, do you remember early in the year we was arguing with Ty and Mike about Lance Armstrong?
Yeah, they didn't want to believe
They
it.
didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe
Hold
it.
up. I didn't say that I bought into all that. I just said I thought it was a big story.
No, we're talking about early in the year.
No.
He could be telling the truth. Like, no.
No.
Farouk said it.
Hold
He's
up,
not telling the
I
truth.
didn't say I'm changing my stance. At the end of the day, Lance Armstrong never tested positive for steroids.
But they had a
Well, I'm
million,
just saying
billion,
everything
trillion
on
amount of
So
evidence.
in
They
my
had
mind,
everything.
I'm not
They made him walk away.
innocent to proven guilty. I mean, his
Come on, though.
his story
Come
was
on.
unique because here he is coming back from testicular cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows probably what he used. I mean, what he did was an amazing feat, I will say that. Is it possible? Absolutely.
Did you hear and read some of the details of the doping in this?
But here was my
The way
issue.
the whole
I don't like when
thing that-
people come out at the 11th hour like, oh yeah, I got info. Well, where were you?
Well,
all
they were
along?
saying this years
Yeah,
ago, though,
I see.
Maya.
Well, at the end of the day,
Let
he
it
opted
go,
to
let it
say,
go.
I'm done fighting this.
No, he opted to say, I'm not going to make myself like a bigger ass than I'm already looking like. That's what he opted to
well,
say.
I'm just saying. So whatever.
Okay, what was your number 3, Farouk?
Well, I this one was hard for me. I think I wanted to go, all right, Giants winning the Super Bowl because they were 7-7. They won the Super Bowl, and that happened in the 2012 calendar. Like I said, I want to go more on the court stuff.
Okay.
On the field, or all of that. So I think I might stick with the Giants.
Well, then I guess next year at the end of 2013, we'll be saying the implosion of the Lakers with Dwight Howard coming on the team. I predict
Possibly.
that'll
Possibly.
be. Farouk was like with and D'Antoni there. No, by the way, that ain't gonna work. Just so you know.
Well,
I know what you think it's gonna work.
At least they're back at 500. At least they're back.
they look good on Christmas too against a team that a lot of people think is a title contender. So
Nah, whatever.
It was Christmas. They wanted to go home.
What was your number 3, Maya?
That was my thing.
That was
I
your
did
3?
Penn State, Lance Armstrong, and then the whole Derrick. I think Derrick Rose was I think it changed the landscape of of the Eastern Conference, because now the Bulls went from being a contender to we don't know what. Speaking of Derrick Rose, he is practicing with the team, a non-contact practice, and he's also traveling with them. So for all you Bulls fans or even just Chicago fans, if you need something to make you feel good,
Where's my Bulls hoodie at?
what I tell you guys all the time, Derrick Rose is now officially back with the team, and you can look at the surgery that Adrian Peterson had. I said it last week. Derrick Rose had the same surgery, and look at what Adrian Peterson is now doing. So for Bulls fans, it doesn't mean, by the way, this is some big playoff run and the title's coming down the pipeline.
No.
But
They will make the playoffs, though.
it will give you something to watch that's worthwhile at some point.
Did you do your third?
No, my number 3, actually, I had a tie. It was Lance Armstrong, but since I like hockey, it was the LA Kings winning the first Stanley Cup.
Okay.
I like
Wow,
hockey.
completely forgot about that. They've been going for so long.
Right.
Yeah, no hockey.
next year we'll be
Batman,
saying
you should be gone with
The
Lovie Smith
NHL.
fired.
And they still have not decertified. I just don't understand.
Well, they have this whole
Hockey
last
is so
proposal,
crazy.
right, where
Yeah.
if they come to an agreement, they'll be playing on January 19th, which is absurd to me. How can you play a
And my
sport like
birthday.
that?
But you know,
All right, and my
Wow.
I think what the issue is, hockey just doesn't have the revenue that the NFL, the MLB, and
And they
NBA
want to
has.
expand. The guy who owns the Chicago Wolves, the owners kind of gave him gave him a blessing to own an NHL team, and he wants to expand, bring another team to Seattle, not move a team that's below the Mason-Dixon. No. I want to bring in a brand
They have
new
to figure
team.
out how to
What are you
make
doing?
the NHL more profitable first. This is
No
part of the issue.
teams below Kentucky.
Yeah, well,
They should be contracting
How
instead
about
of
that?
expanding. Them in
Or
baseball,
at least
they need
they need to
move on
decertify.
some teams.
That's
them.
the bottom line. They need to
Yeah.
decertify and kind of rehash this and go back. But yeah, I don't know. I just at this point I'm kind of disenchanted. I'm actually kind of waiting for baseball. If you want to know the truth.
I don't know.
I want to see my Blackhawks, but
Yeah,
I mean, I'm over it though. I'm over it. I'm
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
tired of being held hostage as a fan with these CBAs. So
Yeah.
I'm just waiting.
moving on.
Speaking of, you do know we're on the 40th year anniversary of Roberto Clemente's. You know, he was killed on New Year's
Oh,
Eve.
yeah, he died in a plane
that's right.
crash, yeah.
Died in a plane
One
crash,
of
yeah.
my all-time favorite baseball player. So
Yeah. It's finished with exactly 3,000 hits, right?
Yep, he sure did.
Exactly
favorite, my
3,000.
fave.
Yeah, so that's a pretty cool number to have. Unfortunately,
it's not the way you want to end
Yeah.
it, but
yeah. Wow, this was a super duper fast show tonight, man.
because the NFL just consumed us.
Yeah.
So if anybody happened to miss the show and you missed our great guest who is AJ from Blue Dew Sports
Harris.
on Twitter, and then Russell Baxter, Baxcrew on Twitter as well. You can always listen. We re-air these shows every Wednesday on Blog Talk Radio at 8:30 p.m. So you can go to blogtalkradio.com/stats&D Stilettos, and you can listen to the show. And of course, all our shows you can go to our actual page for the show and listen to any former show, and then also on iTunes as well, Stats and Stilettos. So if you miss anything, you can get the MP3s for them, which is
And you
good.
can watch them on YouTube. Simply search for Stats and Stilettos.
All right, we have a special treat for you guys listening tonight. Normally coming up, after our show is Cool Out Radio, and you kind of hear Cool Out sounding all fuzzy and stuff on the phone. But tonight, my man is live and direct back in the Shy, so he will be sitting where I'm sitting in about 2 minutes, bringing you guys on Cool Out Radio live and in full effect. So I know all the loyal listeners to that show will be staying tuned, because you listen to this show as well, and you'll be listening to Cool Out Radio coming up in a few minutes. And there's going to be a whole lot of people here from what I'm understanding checking it out. So everybody's saying hi to Cool Out. He brought his daughter with him.
Wow.
It's going to be live. So
In the house.
make sure you stay tuned for that. Thanks to all of our guests for joining us tonight. Thanks to our callers, listeners, the staff, everybody. We love you. Great show. We'll be back talking NFL playoffs next week. So peace.